Hi, in this segment of PA4 videos, we'll be looking at an example of converting a given gold tree into labeled instances. So this task of generating labeled instances is carried out by the oracle, which takes in a gold tree and spits out labeled configurations. So each configuration is made up of a stack, a buffer, and the dependencies which have been extracted till now. And we choose an action based on this. The actions can be shifting, reducing, left arc or right arc. Left arc and right arc may also have a label attached to it. Since the label is already given to us by the gold tree, we ignore it for now and focus on the other aspects of extracting labels. So let's say we have a sentence: his mother was also killed in the attack. We have all the tokens. The initial configuration is when we have all the tokens in the buffer and just the root in the stack. Note that stack top and buffer front are what we are going to refer to as for the top of the stack and front of the buffer. At each configuration, we get 4 choices: shift, reduce, left arc or right arc. We are not looking at the labels on each arc, but they are trivial to extract. So let's start with this example and see if we can derive an intuition as to what rules should we apply to extract the labels for each configuration, and also to extract configurations going from the previous configuration. So in this case, we see that there is no direct dependency between the stack top and the buffer front. So it is not possible to create a left arc or a right arc. So clearly these two choices are out of question. However, we cannot reduce root. And now why is that? That is because we see that the root can never have a head, and therefore we cannot reduce it, as we see in the third rule in the PDF itself. So we cannot reduce root, and the only remaining option is to shift the token his onto the top of the stack. This shifting is also illustrated in this PDF, where we see that we remove the front of the buffer and push it onto the stack. Now in the new configuration, there is a dependency between the stack top and buffer front, and we need to see whether we are able to capture this or not. So the first thing that we notice is that the right arc is not possible because it's not there. Now we have 3 options. Out of this, his does not have a head yet. The condition to reduce is that the top of the stack should have a head, and only then can we reduce it. So we cannot use the reduce action here. Mother won't get a left modifier if we shift the token mother onto the stack. Now why is that? This is because once a token is shifted onto the stack, it never goes back to the buffer, and only when a token is on the buffer can it have a left modifier. So we cannot shift the token mother either, and we are only left with one alternative, that is the left arc from the token mother to the token his. Now if we look at the PDF yet again, we see that the actions to be performed when we add a left arc is that we pop the top item from the stack after ensuring that it is not the root and it does not have a head, and then add it as a modifier to the item in front of the buffer. And that is what we do here as well. So we add it as the modifier of the token mother and remove it from the stack. Now after this configuration, we yet again notice that left arc and right arc are not possible because there is no left arc or right arc between top of the stack and front of the buffer. Also, yet again, we cannot reduce root, so it is also out of the question. We are only left with one alternative, that is to shift. After we shift, we see that even now we don't have any left or right arcs going between second and the third token. Also, the stack top does not have a head yet, so it cannot be reduced. The only option we are left with is to shift. Now, after we shift was to the top of the stack, we observe that the stack top does not have a head yet again, and it's almost the previous case. So we yet again choose to shift. Now we see that head of the stack and front of the buffer are linked by a left arc. So we cannot take a right arc, the stack top does not have a head, and the buffer front once shifted cannot gain a left modifier. We have explained all of these reasons previously. So the general idea that emerges from this is that if you have a dependency spanning the top of the stack and front of the buffer, it is imperative to create that arc in the current configuration. And why is that? So creation of that arc is only possible when the front of the buffer is in its position. Once it gets shifted, then that arc can never be created. Why? Because let's say it was a left arc. A left arc needs for example, in this case, the left arc needs the token also to be on top of the stack and the token killed to be in front of the buffer. Similarly, a right arc will also require the same configuration. Once we shift killed from this configuration, we cannot gain this configuration back again. Similarly, if we reduce also, whether it had a head or not, once it is reduced, it goes out of the stack and we yet again cannot gain this dependency. So let's go ahead and try to reason this out further. Once we take a left arc, we have to pop it off the stack, and now the token was gets exposed. We see that it has an impending left arc to it from the token killed, and that is what we have to take yet again. Similarly for the token mother, that is what we do. And now we have a dependency between root and the token killed. Note that this is a right arc and left arc is not possible. Following similar reasoning as we described earlier, we have to have a right arc label here, because if we shifted the token killed, then we would not be able to produce the right arc, as the token killed would never be back on the buffer. Even if the token at the top of the stack was not root, and even if it could have been reduced because it had a head, we still need to form this right arc, because if we reduce it, we cannot ever form that right arc again. So whether it be a left arc or a right arc spanning the top of the stack and front of the buffer, we need to create it as soon as the configuration allows us to. So note that once we have a right arc, the token killed or top of the buffer needs to be added to front of the stack. So once we do that, we are yet again left with 4 choices. Left arc and right arc is not possible. Reduce is not possible because in this case, the stack top has unextracted modifiers to its right. So if we did reduce the token killed, then it would not be in the stack, and these right modifiers we would not get these labels. So the only option remaining is to use the action shift. So we shift the token in and observe that we yet again cannot left arc use a left we yet again cannot get a left arc or a right arc because it's not there, and we cannot reduce it because in this case the stack top does not have a head. Now we shift the token the, and we see that we have a dependency between stack top and buffer front. So now we give the reasoning that the stack top does not have a head in this case, so we cannot reduce, and the buffer front once shifted cannot gain a left node modifier, so we cannot shift. But as we have seen previously, if there is a left arc or a right arc spanning the top of the stack and front of the buffer, we need to create it. So we create a left arc, and yet again we face the exact same situation. We create a left arc. Now we have a right arc visible here, so we create a right arc. Similar reasoning. Stack top has unextracted modifiers to its right, so if we reduce the stack top, it gets removed from the stack, and we cannot have these modifiers in future. And we cannot shift either, because once the buffer front is shifted, we cannot get this we cannot get the head of the token attacked to be the token killed. And finally we are left with the punctuation. We create a right arc. Oh, I'm sorry. So we have to reduce this token. I see. So it gets removed from the stack. Then we create a right arc and it gets added onto the stack. Now the buffer is empty. Any more labels cannot be extracted because all of the dependencies have been extracted. Our job is done. So the takeaways, as we see it, it looks like if there's a left arc or a right arc, we just need to create that arc and use it to create the label for that particular configuration. If not, then we have to choose between shift and reduce. And we have outlined the different ways in which we can discern between these two actions. Okay, good luck with your assignment.